Hi, this is George Alger, and welcome to another segment of Our Ventura TV. Today we're going to be talking about homelessness and vagrancy in Ventura. And our guest expert is Peter Brown, who is the Community Service Manager for the City of Ventura, and he has been for a long time. Welcome, Peter.
Thanks, George. I am getting a little older.
Yeah, but you also have a lot of experience in this topic and many others, but let's get right down to it. I know this is a big topic, but let's see if we can highlight what is homelessness in terms of a definition.
Sure. When you use the phrase homelessness, I think most of our viewers and most people in our community, and certainly those that I talk to out in the world, you think of the single white male, age 50, not a particularly good haircut, perhaps missing a couple of teeth, smoking a cigarette, hanging out at Plaza Park or the Promenade or Mission Park or downtown area, or maybe outside Target or something like that. Maybe have a dog and a backpack and a little disheveled. And while that is a homeless individual in our community, what shows us in national statistics that are applied locally is that's really only 1 or 2 out of the 5 people. So maybe 20 or 30% of the homeless in our community or any community fit that definition, which is the thing that we think of when we think of homelessness. The reality is that that's a chronically homeless individual, and yet the main population of homeless folks are people who are working poor, cycling in and out of homelessness based on interruption in their flow of resources. So we really have to separate the two populations. What are the chronically homeless and how do they impact our community? How do we provide services and resources to those folks to get them on track? And who are what we call the episodically homeless, who absolutely fall into homelessness based on an episode associated with usually finances in their home, their ability to keep their home or their apartment.
Okay. Now, as broad a topic as this is, does the city have a sort of philosophy or a mission or some operating basis in terms of handling this?
Well, first of all, we like very clearly to separate the issue of homelessness and vagrancy. Homelessness is a status of not having a home to go home to, a bed to sleep in with a roof and doors and windows and all those kinds of things that most of us enjoy. Vagrancy is a pattern of behaviors that some homeless folks engage in, but not all, that are illegal or impact the quality of life for individuals in a community, including other vagrants, on vagrant crime. We separate those programs and we separate our approach to people who are homeless chronically or episodically and vagrancy. And the reality is vagrancy is behavior, homelessness is status. And so yeah, the city has approaches for all of that, and it is a very complicated mosh pit on some level. And yet, as we peel back the layers of the onion to figure out how as a community we deal with and assist people who want assistance, then we can get down to the brass tacks of really what do the programs look like, what are the resources that we have, and how do we move people from a status of either homelessness or vagrancy back toward self-sufficiency, self-respect, by addressing demons or issues that people have that actually put them in some of those different categories.
Good. Now, like many citizens, I'm interested in this topic.
Sure.
And I don't really know what the solution is. You probably way more, certainly well more apprised of it. But I know there's a lot of programs, as you mentioned, and we'll probably touch on some of them, but a question right off is, if Ventura or any city is, helping homelessness in terms of feeding them and giving them resources, does that attract more homelessness to the city?
Yeah, been doing this job for a long time, and I get asked that a lot. And the key to addressing homelessness or vagrancy is to have a regional approach. And to that end, we work very closely with our friends over in Oxnard and our friends over in Simi Valley and our friends at the County of Ventura. The reality, George, is, believe it or not, the state of California has about 160,000 homeless folks, and there's only about 650,000 homeless on any given night in the United States. So we have a quarter of all homeless in the state of California. The County of Los Angeles, the county immediately to our south, actually on any given night has about 50 or 55,000 of that 160,000. In Ventura County, we have about 1,750 homeless folks, and of those 1,750, 2/3 of them, about 600 in the city of Oxnard, about 600 in the city of Ventura, in the West County. Why do we have so many fewer than Los Angeles, people often ask, and why are so many of them in West County, people often ask. And the reality is it's a very complicated formula as to how and where people end up when they're in a homeless situation. Some things we know. We know that the state of California attracts homelessness because it is an incredibly nice place to live in terms of weather. And so it would be untrue to state that any more people in California fall into homelessness than in any other state, but it would be true to state that we are a destination place for folks who fall into homelessness, because let's be honest, it's a lot more comfortable to be homeless in a Southern California coastal community where the daytime highs are 65 to 75 than it would be in Bakersfield in California, or Minnesota, or Chicago, or those places. So the next 4 states combined, Florida, Texas, Michigan, and New York State, have about 160,000 homeless, and the state of California has 160,000 homeless. Do people come here because we have services, or do they come here for the weather? And I think it's a combination of both of those things. The reality for us is that in the city of Ventura, we have a couple of very specific policies and a couple of specific ways that we handle this issue of maybe destination homelessness. One is we've put together a team with Project Understanding, the Salvation Army, and Turning Point Foundation, along with a lot of support from the Human Services Agency and the Behavioral Health Departments of Ventura County. And we are a hand-up, not a handout city, and our services are based on the notion of reciprocity. So what does all that mean? A hand up, not a handout means that we want to help you if you want to help yourself. But if you want to maintain a homeless lifestyle on our streets that impacts your health and the health of our community, this may not be the best place for you. But if you want assistance, we will knock ourselves out as a team. Again, Salvation Army, Project Understanding, Turning Point Foundation, County of Ventura, City of Ventura. We will knock ourselves out as a team to help you help yourself. The notion of reciprocity is a little bit different, and that is maybe you're not quite ready to change your life completely, but you still need some resources in order to survive. Well, maybe if you don't get arrested 6 times in Plaza Park or on the promenade, or you don't assault somebody over on the promenade, or you don't steal shopping carts every day, or you don't get arrested for public drunkenness, then we can work with you as long as you're reducing those behaviors that impact the quality of life in our community and reducing those behaviors that result in public safety and our fire department and paramedics having to come out and work with you on the streets, or our police department responding to maybe an illegal behavior that you're engaging in. And we begin to see some light at the end of the tunnel. You're beginning to change your behavior, and our goal is to help you change your behavior for your health and for the health of the community.
Good. Now, speak a little bit about vagrancy. Obviously we're separating them
Sure.
out, but there's a perception, well, maybe I have anyway, that much of the vagrancy is homelessness.
Yeah, some vagrants are homeless, and some homeless people engage in vagrant behaviors. And the goal for us, again, on an individual basis, one person at a time, is to begin to learn people's stories. And we have case managers with our partners who are out on the streets, and it's very rare that we come across somebody that we don't know. When we come across somebody we don't know, we say, hey, we don't know you. What's your story? And then we try to assign case managers to folks who are not service resistant. Many of our vagrant population who are homeless, again, sometimes separate, sometimes together, but many of our vagrants who are homeless are what we call service resistant. They are hyper aware of the services that are available to them, but the conditions in order to access those services are more than the individual wants to comply with, and therefore they engage in activities and behaviors that are against the law, such as petty theft, drunken in public, vandalism, battery, sleeping in certain areas of our public, urinating in public, those kinds of behaviors. And people are held accountable for those behaviors. Once we package all those behaviors, in other words, if you, George, were one of our folks who were frequenting Plaza Park on a daily basis, and you were vandalizing the bathroom, and you were urinating outside, and you were drunk in public, and you were, well, if we cite you enough in Plaza Park, what we do is we package that series of citations, and we actually bring it in front of the court called Community Intervention Court. And the purpose of Community Intervention Court is to offer you opportunities that do not include incarceration. For example, George, we think, in our trained professional way, that the source of all of your issues is this darn alcohol problem that you have, and you seem to be pretty much on track with your life and your ability to stay out of the public safety realm, not get arrested, when you're not intoxicated. But when you get intoxicated, you begin to engage in behaviors that are not productive to you or the community. Perhaps, standing in front of a judge, the judge can say to you, if you take advantage of a sober living facility and you stay there in a program for the next 6 months, we will hold those citations in abeyance until you complete the program. And if you do complete the program, those citations go away and you return to some semblance of self-sufficiency, which allows you to be a good citizen, which allows us not to spend as much money on you, and begins to move you back toward self-sufficiency, including going back home if your home is not the city of Ventura or the county of Ventura. We've had a lot of success in taking folks from Minnesota or New Orleans or Philadelphia or Florida, all people that I'm thinking of in my mind, by the way, and reuniting them with family members and support networks in the places that they come from, because they're on our streets and desperate to get home in a muddled situation in terms of alcohol or drug and mental health issues. And once we start settling some of those issues down in your head and some of those voices, we often find that somebody wants to get home, but they don't have the resources to get home. So we have some assistance programs in order to do that.
Wow.
Pretty fantastic, actually.
Yeah. Okay. How do you even know how many homeless there are in Ventura
It's a great
County?
question. It's a relatively complicated answer, but I'll make it as easy as possible. The federal government actually provides housing and urban development resources to the county of Ventura to the tune of about $2 million a year. In order to continue to be eligible for those funds, we are required to do a homeless count. And we do a homeless count on the 4th Tuesday of every January. We literally go out onto the streets with clipboards and a counting tool, a mechanism, a survey. And we, sometimes in an uncomfortable way, we walk up to people that we think fit the profile of someone who might have been homeless last night. And we walk up and we say, "Excuse me, sir, do you have a moment? I wonder whether or not you were homeless last night." And sometimes people look at us and say, "I wish I hadn't worn these really ratty jeans today." Because, no, I'm not homeless. Why would I be homeless? And then sometimes people say, "Yeah, I was." And we say, "Well, we've got a survey. We'd like to have you answer some questions." It helps us maintain funding to help folks like you. It'll just take a couple of minutes, and if you would assist us, it would be fantastic. Our numbers have been going down. We have sort of decreasing numbers, which is good news. We hope that that trend continues. We're not sure that it will or it won't, because there are so many factors that sort of come into play when someone is falling in and out of this sort of nebulous thing called homelessness. But we actually do account.
Nice.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
All right, well, we're out of time.
Okay.
But in closing, if you could give the viewers a website to find
Sure.
out more info, and if you have a summating message you'd like to state.
Yeah, I think, two things. One, a website. You can go to the City of Ventura's website, cityofventura.net, and go to our community development webpage and find homelessness. And it's a really helpful website and gives all kinds of information on resources and services in our community. But probably the one message, and we didn't get a chance to talk about it today, is that it is not helping an individual when you hand them money on the streets. The reality is what you're doing is you are handing them a resource which then they use to feed their addiction. And it's almost always true. My experience since 1987 doing this job is that is true. And so the way you can actually help an individual get off the streets as opposed to maintaining their lifestyle on the streets is by giving that charitable donation that you've just handed to an individual for a cigarette or for some alcohol or for some drugs, is to give your money to organizations that end homelessness, Catholic Charities, Project Understanding, Salvation Army, the Turning Point Foundation. Misguided charitable giving actually allows people to live on our streets, and the longer people live on our streets in a managed and maintained homeless lifestyle, the more likely they are to pass away. And so if there's no other message today, it is don't support folks with money, because they use that money to dim their sort of feelings and nerves on the streets, and then they don't go to the service centers and get resources which get them off the streets.
Wow. Almost a counterintuitive message.
A little bit counterintuitive, I think so.
Well, Peter, thank you very much.
George, it's fantastic to get information out into the community, and I encourage people. I work up in City Hall and been there for a long time, and if folks want to talk more about it or get involved or learn more, please contact me.
Good.
Thanks, George.
This is George Alger signing off for this segment of Our Ventura TV. Until we meet again.